I wanted to express my gratitude to Ganeshan and to all of you for just an incredible experience, especially to the staff who's held this together. I can't even begin to express what I feel in my heart right now. I could really relate to these daily messages because it was the death of my son that sort of propelled me into inquiry, because the grace of suffering was so great that I was just looking for any way out. And thanks to David, I didn't think I was going to cry.
It's okay. It's okay, my friend.
Thanks to David, I found the Aham Center and just sort of threw myself into the teachings. And I really had an experience of when I was in the present, I wasn't suffering, and when I deviated out of a present moment, there was intense suffering. So it was such a gift that Gabriel gave me to just have that experience and to be with that. And I could just relate to, the mommy's questions, wanting to know, well, where is he? Is he okay? And then getting back to, he's right here, right now, in this moment. Inquire, get back there. Inquire, get back there. And so there's the bliss of the moment, and there's suffering whenever on either side of that. And so it's that narrow path of just being present and not getting, because it's all concepts. When you get down to it, it's all concepts. There's what I think it should look like, and what I want it to be, and what I wanted for him and what I wanted for me. It's all concepts, and concepts are suffering. Really, when you get down to the lowest common denominator here, it's suffering. And so I keep learning that over and over again. And sometimes what I find is in this, information age, it's great that we have cell phones and and iPads and computers that can disseminate this knowledge, but I think what I got from this weekend was it was an electronics fast. I got to fast from the iPhone. I got to fast from the iPad. I got to fast from that and just sort of be in the presence of all you beautiful people, and to just sort of immerse myself back into the teachings, because, my commitment to meditation has never wavered, but my commitment to conscious company sometimes does. I get distracted. All of a sudden, everything else looms, and I tell myself I have to do this. I'm compelled. But it's just, there's nothing more important than staying in the moment. And that's why conscious company is so important, because you remind me when I forget.
Yes.
I forgot. My suffering's from concepts, and if I just stay in the moment, I'll be okay. I remember again and again and again. But I think that, with a commitment to sadhana and with a commitment to self-inquiry, those periods are becoming longer. I don't forget as much. And all I can say is that the programs and the training that I've gotten from Aham, I don't think I'd be standing if it wasn't for those trainings. And if anybody's even wavering out there, don't book your flight.
You said book your flight?
Book your flight. I don't know, I must be talking to somebody out there. Book your flight. Come on up, you know who you are. And I love you. So I'll pay for the ticket. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm just so grateful for the time in silence that we had after Ganeshan's speaking, because it reminds me of what Bhagavan said about how silence is the language of God, and how Bhagavan was always teaching through the silence.
It's okay.
And there was a special silence that we had after Ganeshan's talk yesterday. And I felt like I had a special dispensation of grace, and in which I was shown the arrogance of my mind. Ganeshan's talk was about melting of the mind instead of feeding the mind, melting the mind. And I never realized the arrogance of mind until I was shown that in the silence. And I had tears streaming then too, because it was like the melting just produced the tears. I'm so grateful.
Mm.
First of all, I want to thank all of you at AHAM for having given us this opportunity to be together, and for inviting Ganeshan to be with us and having some very special weekends of his sharing, and helping us once again inquire together and keep that beautiful teaching alive in all our hearts. I think what he shared yesterday was something that we all experienced together, and in that experience we were all one. And for me personally, I learned this technique of self-inquiry here, the ISEP program. And in that program, just listening to "You're totally complete," already finished, totally complete, and having that inquiry was a huge gift. But it also meant it was the beginning of a new journey. And no matter what other tools there are out there, it was the mind that is seeking every other tool.
Mm.
If I'm complete with that inquiry, I do not need to seek anymore. And that seeker in me needed to just dissolve. And whenever I forgot to inquire, then I was out there looking for different things. But then when I came back, I did feel totally complete and finished. And so there's nothing more to look around, no more tools, no more journeys to make for me. And yesterday, Ganeshanji's sharing of that faith was a huge reminder of how much that faith needed to be continuously oiled, in the inquiry, in that tool that was given, and have complete faith in that tool and never swerve from that. And that was the compassion that came through Bhagwan for me yesterday with his teaching and reminder. So these reminders are beautiful, and the faith and compassion came to me through this opportunity. So I thank you, and I thank you for inviting him, and thanks to the teaching that we all have that brings us all together. On a funny story, I have my cleaning lady came once to my house, and I had some of my pictures from my sacred room outside, and there was Bhagwan's picture. And she says, "So you have other relatives in this town?" And I said, "No, really, everybody lives in India." She said, No, that grandpa there, I've seen him in somebody else's home." And I said, "Well, then we are related." Everybody who is, part of the Bhagwan family is related.
Yes. Yes.
Through the teaching, through what we felt last evening.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Listening to Ganeshan and being with Ganeshan, and I would like to share something. I had been going through a pretty rapid spiritual awakening a few years back with Ramana Maharshi's materials and going to the ashram in India, and I had some very powerful, very, very powerful experiences. And in the past year or two, I moved back to Florida and got into some old routines and felt as if the grace that I had experienced was I was no longer connected to that grace, and got kind of depressed and felt pretty disconnected from Bhagavan's grace, disconnected from other people who understand the teachings or at least are working with them. And coming up here felt like, I'm going to say this sounds weird, but felt like a last resort to me in a way, because I just felt like I'd lost him, that his grace, I'd lost his grace. Mm-hmm. And it felt really bad. And I came up and I spent a couple hours in the room in the back just looking at his picture, the one on the rock, and was prompted to get up and walk out of the room after a couple of hours of looking at the picture and just asking for his grace. And I came in here and they had a Ramana's video was on, and he immediately started talking about that picture and said that it was his favorite picture and what it meant to him. And then he started talking about the grace, and it was like the answer was right there. As soon as I asked for it, it was right there. And he said, you know, the fact that you're here is grace. The fact that you know his name is grace. The fact that you've ever heard of this teaching is grace. And I forget that. And suddenly I felt filled with grace. I was like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? You know, where was my mind? Obviously, that was all grace. Just being here is grace. And then Ganeshan sharing yesterday just blew my mind. You know, and I know that was grace, and he talked about grace. So I guess I feel like I woke back up to that grace. That the only reason that I felt it was gone was because I let myself believe that it was gone. I convinced myself of that. And the fact that I have his picture in my house is grace, you know, and that I've been in these places that I hear people talking about all these miraculous things happening, and I've been there and experienced that grace for myself. And then I continue to have people in my life that remind me that that grace is still operating, it's still with me.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share that and just thank everybody here from the bottom of my heart, and thank Ganeshan, and thank you for renewing that in me.
Thank you.
So that I won't forget again, I hope.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yes, we can all relate. Thank you.
And I highly recommend, if you haven't been, you really need to come to the Intensive Self-Inquiry program or any of the others that AHAM presents. And I suddenly realized that with a thought, the body also produced, in conjunction with the mind, an emotion. And it could be sadness, it could be anger, it could be pleasure, it could be anything, but usually you get an emotion. So I realized that I could look at that emotion and that mind-body connection and say, wow, thank you for doing this, but I think I'll go somewhere else. And so I selected happiness. And ever since that program, I have been selecting happiness, and I'm one happy little mother.
So if anyone on this call has never experienced or they don't understand what silence and stillness is, this would be a good place to find out. It led me and it guided me through an arduous journey in my life to be here, to be present, and to be all that I am.
Good morning, everyone. This is Frankie at the center. I've just completed, or will complete in a few minutes, the ISIP program that was given here this week. And I would like to strongly encourage all of you who have never taken ISIP training for self-awareness to do so. And those of you who've had it, like I have had it, in another format, or thought I had it in another format. I've been coming around AHOM since the early 80s, and I have just received so much this week. If you're feeling like you want to be free, and you just don't know how, or you can't get the handle on it, this is a real tool, a real way to do that. And I'd just like to say, sign up.
Hello, everyone on the line. I've had
Introduce yourself.
Peter from Montreal, Quebec, and I've been here on the ISIT program for this week. As Frankie had just shared, it's been an extraordinary experience. I have a question that's still unresolved as I leave here today. I'd like to address it to Ramana. In the business world that I live in, my body-mind apparatus lives in, I'm going to be going back to a world of unconscious people who have stories and get caught up in their stories, and I know I've avoided that in the past, or at least my tendency is to not want to go there, and now I believe I have a toolbox for that. My question is, have you got any advice for people that still live in the other so-called world, and how to deal with business transactions with people that are unconscious, that, you know, may want to, as I think you said yesterday, pull the world over your eyes? How can I be that person and stand for what I believe to be truth in an unconscious world?
Well, first you must recognize that is appearing to go on, and that it appears that there are those people as seeming individuals, but the fact is all of that is being seen by you. So it's an aspect of the self that you are. So if you deal with them with compassion, with consciousness and compassion, and recognize that from where they're coming from, the way they see it is the way it is to them. See? So you be compassionate in that. That's the way they see it, and the way they see it is the way it is to them. Now we have a number of programs here other than the one you have just completed, and that one is dealt with in our conscious communication and relationship workshop, which you will qualify for after you've completed the continued practice and are neutralizing your negative past. Then you will be qualified for conscious communications and relationship. But I'll give you a key. I'm sorry?
Living meditation first.
Oh, living meditation is first. Well, I'll give you a clue. And that clue is to agree with thine adversary quickly while you're still in the way with him. Or very basically, agree with whoever you're dealing with. Don't assert, Don't try to enforce your position, but accept him or her in the positions that they are caught in or seeing it from, and continue to ask questions until they empty themselves of their position, and then they're open and receptive, and more so to receive your points of view, your positions, and your points of view.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
You got it? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking, Peter.